Like, Colin, it doesn't make sense. I grew up in a town, 100,000 people in Eastern Canada. I was a drug addict. I went to jail twice. I wasn't even supposed to be alive. How do you go from that to 27 years later being asked to speak on the stage by the GOAT?
But you talk about how you had this idea that you were going to be speaking on stage at a Tony Robbins event. You went with Renee to a Tony Robbins event, and one thing led to another. You're at the front, you know, you're VIP, basically family, friends. I'm curious about the vision of how you got to that and why it was important to you. More specifically, I'm curious about who did you need to become to actually be the person that could present on stage at a Tony Robbins event?
And the beautiful thing you said earlier about being the 100th episode is you were like, I wouldn't have been ready for this conversation.
Right.
So that's the other thing, right? When people have a dream or goal, what they don't typically do is they don't prepare to receive. If you knew you're having a baby in 9 months, would you get ready? Of course you would. You would get the room ready. You'd buy some clothes. You'd talk to some people. You'd read some books.
You'd freak out a little bit.
You'd freak out, but you would prepare to receive.
That's right.
Right? Because the expectation is there. See, most people have goals, but they don't get ready to receive their goals. So I'm at it. Yeah, it's super cool concept. Yeah.
Wow.
It's when we want to talk about manifesting, that's a big part of it. Okay. You act in the energy as if you received, and you don't worry about timing. So what happened is I'd never been to a Tony event. I donated to an X Prize. I show up. Turns out that I'm invited, chairman invited seat, so I'm right on stage. And at the end, it was Date with Destiny, doing the goals thing. And, one of the exercises was like, what's something, essentially the way I think about this question, I've heard it asked differently, is what's something you could write down that if it came true, it would prove that God is real? That was the way I took it, right? I think Joe Dispenza talks about it that way.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, you got to understand.
Wow.
Tony's probably had 20 million people attend events in person. I'm pretty sure more than, let's call it 10% said, I would love to speak on Tony's stage when they see other speakers come out, John Paul DiGiorno and friggin' you name it. Literally the who's who, Pitbull, like you're, wow, wouldn't it be crazy if someday I do something, I'm successful enough that Tony's like, please come and teach this, Keith Cunningham, all these people. So I wrote it down. Now, the difference is because I've been manifesting for so long, pretty much since I was in my early 20s, I knew how to activate it. So the way you activate it is you got to visualize it. So I have a vision board. I have a vision board I've been doing every year, okay? Every year, me and my wife sit down at the end of the year. We design each other's. We share them. We talk about it. And that's kind of, I set as a wallpaper to my laptop. And I've had me on stage at Tony Robbins' event, okay, visualize for 7 years. And I would tell people, I said, I don't know how and I don't know when. This is before my YouTube channel. This is before my book. This is before my socials. This was just a crazy idea. And I remember I was sharing it with my designer, Rich, and we were working on the vivid vision for one of my companies. And he decided in the document to put a visual image of me on stage with, essentially it was the Date with Destiny stage with my face on the projector screens, me on the stage. Like he took Tony out and put me on it, but it was that event. And he put it in this document, this visual PDF. And I remember when he did, I was like, dude, he's like, hey man, you said it. Because that was the other thing is you activate it by speaking it. I believe we speak our futures into existence. Right. Words. Okay. I just posted a reel today about Conor McGregor doing this. And I would, 3 times a day, I would just look at this thing and try to get into the energy of being on that stage. And, then over time I started my YouTube. I started, creating more content, and then I decided to write a book, and the book comes out and it does well, and cool. But do you know how many best-selling books are and they still don't get invited? But Tony's the GOAT, okay? GOAT, GOAT, GOAT. He's goated. There's no denying. It would be hard for anybody to even try at any point to be bigger than Tony because he's just been doing it for so long, and people don't do events like he does. Like he legit has 16,000 people go to these events. And it would have been 7 months ago. I'm laying on my couch, as I do very often, actually. I work really hard. When I don't, I have no problem putting my feet up. My wife's next to me, and I get a text message with a screenshot from my assistant, Ann. And I think it's just like 3 explosion emojis with the screenshot. And I click it and I read it. And it says, Mr. Martell, Tony Robbins would like to invite you to speak at Business Mastery, da-da-da-da-da. And I don't even, I remember the moment, but I kind of like out of body. And I just started screaming, like aggressively, like not an angry scream, but like an F yeah, but like really like
a 7-year deep
like
rooted.
I can't even explain it. Like, yes, you know what I mean? And Renee knew enough. Okay, she's been with me enough. When she started seeing me, she actually pulled out her phone and she recorded it. And I jumped off of the couch and I'm just jumping up and down the living room. I go, yeah. And she's like, what? And I'm like, holy cow, you won't even believe it. She's like, what? And then I started crying. And I said, Tony Robbins just invited me to speak on stage. Like, Colin, it doesn't make sense. I grew up in a town of 100,000 people in Eastern Canada. I was a drug addict. I went to jail twice. I wasn't even supposed to be alive. How do you go from that to 27 years later being asked to speak on the stage by the GOAT? God had plans for me. God had big plans for me. And I just know that every day I wake up, and I share this as often, and you'll know why I share this if you see this. I say my work ethic is a reflection of my gratitude. Because people don't get it. Why do you wake up at 4 a.m. if you don't have to? Why do you do this if you don't have to? You don't understand. It's because I don't have to that I honor the fact that I get to. And people that don't have wealth will never understand it, because if they got it, they would immediately do nothing, and that's why they'll never get it. Isn't that crazy? They don't correlate the fact that because God knows that if you got the money, you would immediately do nothing, he will never give it to you because he doesn't want you to do nothing. He wants you to create. I believe I got blessed because he knew that I would take advantage of that situation and use that to do more good. I believe that source supports those that support others. That's how it works. So you better believe I prepped. I did the work. And again, I wasn't ready 7 years ago. I wasn't even ready a year ago. I wasn't even ready 6 months prior. There were certain things that I needed to figure out that I figured out so that when I finally got on stage, I could show up as the person that Tony needed. Okay? Here's the deal. That was a one-time invite. And I document the whole things on my vlog because of Ed. Isn't that crazy? Not surprised. Not surprised at all. I remember I told Ed, bro, that's huge. That's huge, dude. And I'm like, I know, I'm nervous already. And I showed up and I did my thing. And about 6 weeks later, I get invited back. It's crazy,
Let's
dude.
go.
I know.
Let's go.
I'm like, it is special.
Wait, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the callback.
I got called back.
Yeah.
Once I'm going in August.
When August? August what?
Don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, not only that, John Maxwell,
Amazing.
GOAT, found out about me.
Sharing stages with him.
45 minutes, and he invited me to speak as vet. They're a week apart. One's in Orlando, one's in essentially West Palm. Like, what? I'm just a freaking kid, dude. I don't know. I'm still like...
You said something interesting. You said you needed to show up for Tony, right? So it was, I feel like a lot of individuals are so caught up, we are so caught up in our own heads about how are we doing it and how are we going to look for us, right? But you said something very powerful there, which was, how do we do it for Tony? Because Tony is doing it for the people that are showing up.
Dude, because I have my own stages, when I invite somebody to share that stage, that's not an easy decision. You are extending your brand, your name to that person, not only in that moment, for the rest of life, because you invited that person. So those are not easy decisions. So, and I found out after the fact, how the heck did my name even get part of the conversation? And who did he back channel to verify, to make sure this Dan guy not only could deliver, but is somebody I would even want to potentially be associated with? Because like that's like, he's blessing me. And
wow.
It was
Wow.
it was an honor, is an honor, continues to be an honor, and I will deliver the next one and any opportunity he asks. You know, as long as I don't have a major conflict, I always say yes. He actually asked me to do another. This is kind of funny. It don't matter. He asked me to do something else. Unfortunately, I had another conflict. That was crazy. Saying no to Tony, I felt so bad. But you know, but same time, I want him to know that if I commit to something, like I told you, I always do it.
Yep. Look at where we are. You said no to Tony,
Dude.
That's crazy to even say out loud. You in your recent vlog, you shared a story that in regards to reputation and the folks that we have representing ourselves. You shared a pretty impactful story is what it sounded like.
Watched that one?
Yeah, I watched that. You know I watched that.
Man.
That was, I mean, ouch.
Hey, this is
but
yeah.
It's what do you do about it afterwards, right? It's how you responded. It was event plus response equals your outcome, which is what you did. Maybe if you want to touch on that, maybe how it impacted you.
I mean, it was. There was a period 2 years ago in my business, in SaaS Academy specifically. It was the hardest, not only week, it ended up being 6 months. And what happened that kicked this whole thing off was I invited somebody to speak at my event. And it was the smaller group, my very high-end group, 60 people in a room. We record everything. And he teaches men how to show up better for their wives, but he has a very vulgar way of saying that, if that makes sense, right? He's very
understood.
That whole alpha kind of. And but I knew that. I've seen him speak, and I remember before he went on stage, I said, "Hey man, could you not say those words? Could you tone it down?" And his response was like, "I'm pretty awesome, and I think people like who they meet. I'm just gonna be me because that's pretty awesome. Is that okay?" And I was just like, "Dude, I'm not gonna fight with you. Whatever."
Yeah.
Right. Again, it wasn't a public event. It was a private event. I warned everybody before he went on, hey, he's got a unique style. Bear with it. If it triggers you, be curious.
Yep.
We should always be curious, things that offend us. Anyway, he does this thing. Yeah, there's a few people in the room that were like pretty not happy. No big deal. What happened is one of the women in the room that worked on the team was so offended, rightfully so. In hindsight, huge mistake on my part. And found the recording in our vault and sent it to all the other women on the team. Half my team are women. And that got to my COO, who was a woman. And I remember she calls me and she goes, Dan, did you see the talk that guy gave? And I said, I was in the room. I know, yeah. She goes, do you agree with everything he says? I said, well, I would never say it that way. But I mean, the points he was saying they were really good. Like he's got good content. And then she started reading me word for word what he had said. And she's like, so you're telling me you agree with these things? And I said,
that's a gut wrencher.
No, I don't. No. And she goes, good. Because if you did, we'd have an even bigger issue. But we do have an issue. There's several women on the team that are ready to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was caught blindsided. And I said, what do you need me to do? She's like, I think you need to address the whole company. We have our all hands in a few days, do it there. And I apologize to everybody and, can't go back in time, but here's the new rule going forward. If I wouldn't say those words, then that person can't speak on my stage. Simple concept. In hindsight, I should have saw it. And I sincerely apologize. I thought that was enough. If you make a mistake, you apologize and tell me what you learned from it and what changed. I'll be like, cool, lesson learned. Unfortunately, that wasn't good enough. And it caused a cascading effect of HR issues and cultural issues. There's just 6 months of my life was crazy. And I at one point got so frustrated. Again, I'm not perfect by any means. I did a Slack post. I was at the point where I couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, I apologize. Why is this person upset? And what are you talking about? And this was during COVID, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. There was a lot of emotions. And I just got to the point where I didn't even know who to trust, right? Like, I talked to somebody and they'd say we're good, and then I'd find out from somebody else that they're not good, and they're literally saying this, and this. And I'm like, I just talked to them, and so eventually I just wrote this Slack post that said, here's our mission. Because like my whole philosophy in business is I'm here to solve the customer's problem. I'm not here to solve the world's problem. That's my philosophy. That's the kind of culture.
Okay.
Either you're on board with that or you're not.
Yeah.
I can't solve every world's problem. I can solve the problem that our customers paid us. We all get to come to work because we have a customer. Let's focus on that. And I said, if for whatever reason that doesn't align with you, I will give you $15,000 to quit, and I won't ask questions. I posted this. I wrote this whole thing, and I posted it. Oh, yeah.
How did that go?
First off, all my directors and my vice presidents called me right away. What are you doing? Because I didn't even review with them. That was dumb. And the worst part was people that weren't even on the issues list were just so confused what was going on that they opted in to leave just because they were like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Not mad at me, but
because they didn't have context around what was.
Well, they were trying to do their work. A players are just executing.
Yeah.
And they were dealing with this, and it just got to a point where they're like, you know what? You guys got to figure this out, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. So yeah, the people I didn't want to go, they were like talking like I'm leaving, and I'm like, oh no. So it was crazy. But that's like the punchline to the whole thing is it took me 2 years, but I knew in that moment that as I worked through it, and this is just with history and experience, I've been doing this for 20 some years. All I know is that the worst thing that ever happens to you is literally the most powerful thing you can have in the future. When we talk about getting ready to receive, sometimes the adversity is actually forging you into the person you need to become to receive your goal. And I knew in that moment, I didn't know how long it was going to take me, but I would, and I did, rebuild the whole culture. We lost 32% of our team.
Wow.
In 6 months.
Wow.
2 years later, not only do we have the highest ENPS score, the Employee Net Promoter Score, highest culture feedback, I just announced last week that Johnny, at the time, my CRO, today is taking over as CEO. I'm moving to president, and the business is thriving. It took 2 years. It was a lot of work, but I knew that with enough time, I'd figure it out, and it would be the most powerful story that I could use to help encourage other people dealing with leadership issues, because it's just true. It's business. It's
gonna happen.
It will happen again, man.
Yeah.
Like somebody on my team's gonna do something, and in that moment, I'm gonna laugh and I'm gonna tell them a little story, and they're gonna go, "Oh my gosh, you went through it too?" I go, "Yeah." So that thing you did there, how about we don't do that? How about we lead with curiosity? How about we figure out what people's 5-year goals are? How about we understand the vision for, like, you know what I mean? Like what I did is while I was going through it, it's literally a notes file on my phone called the toughest week of my business life ever. And I would just write down everything that was happening. There was like 13 things, just crazy stuff. People lying to me. My HR director, okay? She was part of the issue. Guess what her name is? Karen. Can't even make this stuff up, dude. It's like literally just writes itself. So, but I knew at the other end of this, with enough time, I'll figure it out, and it'll be the most epic story.
Reminds me of a couple of different things I've heard over time. One is from Ed Mylett, podcast a couple years ago. It's not what happens to us, it's what happens for us.
Yeah.
Right, depending on how we choose to look at it. And we have to have been where we were to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Right? I think those are two things that stand out to me in your story here. And so, Dan, we have a couple minutes here. I want to respect your time. And typically I'll have 4 questions that I'll run through at the end. I'm going to skip to the last one. And it's, what would 65-year-old Dan say to your current day self right now?
Go bigger.
Go bigger.
Chicken shit. That's exactly what he's going to say.
Tell me what that means. What does he mean by that?
Just stop acting like you got constraints. Stop. Like until you actually have a constraint, stop acting like you got one.
Why are you acting like you have one, do you think?
Scared to lose it. Scared to embarrass myself publicly.
Do you really think you would lose it?
I think I could do enough damage. I think I could. The fun part for me is even if I lost all the possession stuff, my wife and I, we're good. Like we talk about it all the time. Worst case, I go live with my brother for 3 months and then we're back to where we were. Like,
heard you say a story the other day. Renee walked in. Something was up. You went, sat upstairs in the pocket, in the feet in the sink. Like,
oh yeah. When
kid,
she was having a moment,
you just got to be in the moment though.
Yeah. Just let her feel.
What are you resisting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's what the 65-year-old would say. Just stop holding back. You've been gifted these skills and community and people.
Too many more people to serve.
Yeah, just ask for more help, get some more support, learn faster. And that's literally I use that frame every day to just ask myself, where am I playing small?
Build your people bigger.
Yeah, we build the people and the people build the business.
Beautiful. Dan, it's
Colin,
been a pleasure.
Super fun. Great
Yeah,
questions.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you bet.
Dude.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you got to the end of this episode, can you please do me a huge favor and leave a 5-star rating and review? This helps me be able to reach out to bigger guests and also be able to get access to special events and activities that otherwise would not be possible without your support. So if you could please take just 3 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next episode.